Okay, so this is day 99 of Bean House. It is Saturday, November, I believe the 20, oh goodness, I'd say 21st. And so anyway, to continue with the conversation of abuse, I'm just on my way to the track here too. So I might do a couple laps, walks around the track. I can continue with this, and then I'll do my sprints. And I'll have to pause this or interrupt this. But yesterday, I took a video of the bathroom sink, and so this is the same sink where the owner's mother, the wife. Oh goodness, this is quite a few months ago, but she was very vicious, very aggressive, and she snapped out on me and she said the sink was so bad after I used it that she had to use the kitchen sink. And I was really kind of shaken up by that. I always want to make sure if I do anything that is disrespectful, that behavior is corrected right away. And I was thinking, could I have, I don't see myself being in a rush, but and I remember I was sick that day too. I was thinking, could I have been a little negligent? And so I was expecting to see a big mess in the bathroom, and it's quite the opposite. And that was when I was giving the owner's mother more of a benefit of the doubt. And now that she's revealed that she will just yell and scream and, just make things up. And then afterwards she'll come back and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I now just take her at her word. And at her actions, and I no longer give any credit to what she says. You can only say I'm sorry so many times and not change that behavior before the sentiment and I'm sorry is revealed for the way it is in your heart, and I think that's good. It's wonderful if everybody is honest with the way they feel. Then they can make the appropriate changes, for the better. But if you're dishonest about the way you feel, you can continue with abusive and inappropriate behavior for as long as you want. And I see that with children, but every child has to come to a point or a threshold where they become accountable for their actions, accountable for their words, and then they transition into adulthood. So anyways, that's neither here nor there. So we're just talking about this abuse and the impact it has. And I think more importantly is we're talking about, or I'll share with you how, oh goodness, these things are really difficult to want to talk about. I can even, move this over to, we're say at work. If somebody is picking on you at work, it's really easy to want to just ignore it and to not want to tell anybody about it, because there's a little bit of shame that can come from it, a lot of embarrassment and virtually humiliation. Hey buddy. And so anyways, so this is, it's wise to note that, because these are variables that unseen variables that folks might be dealing with. And I find when these unseen variables, such as a little bit of shame, humiliation, etc., when they're not addressed, when they're not acknowledged, when they're not dealt with, and most importantly, when they're not resolved, I truly believe that they are seen in a multitude of expressions, and that the expressions could be, internal monologue where you're just full of anger and hate and bitterness, or you have so much unforgiveness towards the person who's doing it to you, and you plot revenge, or you brood over these things, or you ruminate over what was just said. And the rumination could look like sitting in a cold garage smoking a cigarette, or smoking marijuana, or taking drugs, or drinking a glass of whiskey, or a bottle of beer to take the edge off because you're stressed out, or you're angry, or you're upset. So it can be a multitude of things, and it can also be you having a short temper and on people that remind you of that person in any certain way, or being distracted while you're at work, and then succumbing to this overall feeling of like dread, or this or that, just being overwhelmed by your feelings. So it's expressed, I believe, in many, many different ways until it's resolved. Once it's resolved, then it's there's nothing there to rise to the surface and to cascade out of you. But anyway, so what I was thinking about yesterday is just how maybe how methodic these things really are. Like if I'd like to sit down, and I will sit down with you guys in the near future, and we're just kind of piece all these things together. So from the first accostation, the first accusation, I think that was about the juice, and then the second accusation about the garbage bag, the grocery bags, and then so on and so forth. And like now I feel like when I'm at that place, I don't feel free. I feel like I have to. I don't want to be around the owner's mother. And I've noted that the owner has mentioned to me that his mother has mentioned that I seem really secretive, and he said that she said to him, he never, like, he just keeps to himself. He just keeps in his room, and I find that to be suspicious behavior. So that also reveals, like, on her side, it's that aggressive, abusive behavior comes out of her. But then when the natural responses, the responses that are natural to things like this unfold, then she still wants to control that. It's all about control. It's all about domination. That's the way I see it from this side. And it creates an atmosphere where the other person walks on pins and needles, or walks on eggshells, and walks around landmines. I think it's wise to talk about these things. I think it's really wise to note, like, the variables around these things. I've noticed the owner's mother seems to, she uses marijuana to take the edge off. She seems to be extremely bitter all the time and complains all the time. So even being around her when she's not viciously attacking you, it's still very draining. But in her mind, I'm certain she's probably, this is just my guess, but she's probably used to being around people that tolerate that behavior. But if you're around somebody who's not used to that behavior, it's extremely off-putting. It's really weird, and it's not only non-productive, but it's oh goodness, it's draining, and it's really it's draining. It's non-productive, and I desire to see people, like, be healed from the different ailments that have ailed them. I desire to see people, set free from different abuse and different terrible things that have happened to their life, or happened to them in their life. But I don't desire to be somebody that just stands idle while people vent on you. I find when people vent on you, it's like they're taking things that are really heavy and unresolved that they're not facing, and then they're just basically giving you like a highlight recap of these things and expressing like their deepest emotions on how they feel about these things. But there's never a resolution. They're never moving towards like a resolution. They're never moving towards being set free from these things. And I find that's it's something we all have to be accountable for. I find it's very similar to being respectful to other people in terms of like their time and in terms of their boundaries. I might have all the free time in the world, and then I might come across somebody, and because I have all the free time in the world, I might want to talk, exhaustively about maybe last night's hockey game. But it's wise for me to pay close attention. Are they an active conversationalist? Are they an active participant in this conversation? Do they have like the same level of attachment and engagement? If they don't, I'm being very disrespectful to them, and I'm dishonoring and disrespecting their time. In fact, I'm showing them very little respect. And I find it's the same thing with sharing, the personal things that are going on in your life. So these are things that I learn. I can learn from all things, and it's wise to learn from all things. But to just share openly and candidly about the various things that are going on in your life it's a very poor choice. It's very unwise, and it can really show like disrespect and dishonor the other person, even if you don't understand it as such or you don't believe it to be as such. But it creates a realm where I don't need to know everybody's personal business. And I find like sometimes people will share things and then shortly afterwards they become paranoid that you're going to tell other people, and then they can become very abusive and aggressive to you as like an unspoken threat to keep you in line. I don't like to be around personalities like that. That's very cruel, and those are things that just reveal somebody who's unaccountable. If you don't want something to be shared with others, you shouldn't share it in the first place. And so anyway, so these are just things that I learned from situations like this. I also find, and I'm just about to go to the track here, but I also find, just being there, this will lead and lend more to the vulnerable population. When you're being treated with disrespect, and when somebody's trying to dominate you or manipulate, control, and dominate you, you really feel pent up. You feel like you're, where everybody else can walk free or other people can walk free. It's like there's a vicious dog standing there, and that dog has your scent. And if that dog sees you, he barks uncontrollably, and he just might bite you. So it just creates a very poor atmosphere for growth, a very poor atmosphere for health. It's just a very poor atmosphere overall. And I find like for members of the vulnerable population, that desire to get out, that desire to be set free, that desire to move forward past these things, you'd have to be in an atmosphere and around personalities that are an atmosphere that is pure, an atmosphere that is safe. Safety is one of the main components where you can go and you can rest, you can recharge. It's like your sanctuary where you feel just comfortable just being there and expressing yourself. That's needed. And then the people or the company that come around you, you'd have to feel safe around them as well. Safe to fully express yourself the way you truly are, so you don't have to wear any masks or put on any performances, and safe to continue to grow and explore and to move forward and to mature virtually. I find one of the biggest hindrances or the biggest things that will stunt maturation is immaturity, in being around individuals that are not like-minded and are not headed in the same direction. It can cause a lot of strife and confliction inside. And the only way to face that, I find, is to first have that resolve of knowing who you are and where you desire to be, and then focusing on it regardless of how lonely it gets, regardless of how difficult it gets, regardless of how hopeless it gets. Oh goodness, everybody who is no longer where they used to be but is now where they desire to be had to go through those moments of those struggles where they're questioning everything. They're questioning whether they're going in the right direction. They're questioning whether things are going to work out. They're questioning, like, oh goodness, it's so lonely. Oh goodness, it feels like nobody understands me. You go through all those things because they're outside of your comfort zone. And everybody who's at that level, they have left their comfort zone, and there's a threshold where there's that moment of time where they could look back and they could return to the very spot that they had left. But they chose to keep going and keep pursuing something better. Not because they could see it, but because they're no longer comfortable, but they're no longer desire to be where they're at. And it's very difficult. And so anyways, I think these are good things to talk about. when they're talked about constructively. But anyways, here's my friend is at the track here. I'm gonna go do some laps, and God bless you. Have a wonderful day.